Welcome to episode 2. Stop it. So, and
I'm done.
and I have a guest this week who's not supposed to be saying anything yet. Anyway, I was no. So anyway, I was talking to a friend of mine who's an illustrator earlier this week, and she was talking about her career and what she wanted to do with her art, and she was very concerned about what what path she wanted to take, and where she wanted to go with her art, and as if she was talking about she was saying what should I do with my art? What path should I take? Should I do? And I want to explore, and I want to do. I want to do this project, but I want to do this project. But what if I make the wrong choice? And when you do illustration as a career, it's a journey, and we're always exploring different avenues. You have to explore different things, and sometimes they won't work right away. Sometimes you'll spend a bunch of time learning a new style, a new technique, and you'll spend all this time on it, and it won't necessarily work right away. And you might present it to a publisher, and the publisher might not be interested right away, and that won't necessarily mean that you didn't do a good job, or that the artwork isn't any good, or that you're a failure, or that there's anything wrong with it all, or that you've wasted any time. So it's really important that you remember that you didn't waste any time. You just became a better artist, and you have a new tool in your arsenal, a new tool in your belt, and you're now a much better artist for it. And you just put that aside, and you just keep moving with your art, and later on you revisit that. Which brings us to our guest who did that several times for 35 years or so, and took his project several times. And it sometimes it takes a long time for something you've worked on and worked for it to just have its time in the spotlight. You're not ready as an artist for that project to be right, and you have to kind of continue to develop and to get ready for that project to come to full fruition. You may not have what it takes to really bring it to where it needs to be. So don't get frustrated with it. Just continue growing until it's ready. And so I'm going to introduce my guest now, which is the great and fabulous Todd Lockwood, who is just amazing artist, and who's excited to tell you about his project, who he a children's book who he started, and nobody was interested in the beginning. Yes, you may talk now, Todd.
Right,
you can unzip the lips now. I'm going to unzip
Look what
Todd's
you did
lips.
with a microphone.
So put it right in Todd's face. So all right.
All
So
right.
Todd Lockwood,
Hi, I'm Todd Lockwood. You knew that already.
you may talk.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for inviting me to your podcast. We are in Missoula, Montana, in case that was not previously known. We're at a convention. We're hiding in a corner of the bar. Here's how you can tell.
You're drinking some apple juice.
Yes. That is a glass of water with a lime in it.
That is a glass of Missoula
spring water.
spring water.
Yeah.
Missoula's water is
All the way from Scotland.
Suspiciously cloudy.
Yeah, what Ego was talking about specifically, 34 years in the making, is the children's art book that I started when my kids were all littles in 1990. The mother of my granddaughter was 0 years old. She was brand new when I started this. You can see a glimpse of it in the banner background there.
Well, some people can. Some people are just on audio.
Oh, well.
They can see it on Facebook,
But
though, right?
You can see it on Facebook. If you look for the 12 Days of Christmas, spell the word 12 out. Don't use the number. That's cheating. You can find on Facebook the 12 Days of Christmas. And if you look for lions playing flutes and dancing with pigs and other animals, that's the right page.
So many birds.
So many birds. Yeah. So in 1990, I was looking for any path out of advertising because I was sick of that Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock call. Oh, we need something first thing Monday morning. Like, thanks. Yeah, I didn't have any weekend plans. Couldn't have. There were times when we would be playing D&D and I would have to set up a card table and be drawing while we were playing. So, yeah, I just needed out of advertising. I painted so many flying silver bullet cans for billboards around the Denver area or around the country, really, I guess. And somewhere around 1985, I think, I did a bunch of covers for Satellite Orbit magazine, which was like the TV guide for anybody who owned an 8-foot wide satellite dish that you would see in those days. They were hijacking HBO symbols before they all got signals before they got scrambled. And anyway, they told me you can do what you want as long as it has a satellite dish in it. So I ran wild. I did some inventive things like satellite dish flowers with a satellite bumblebee attending them, stuff like that. And they were in CA annual. And so then for the next 10 years, anybody on the planet wanted a satellite dish, they called me. And they were not willing to let me be inventive. They had other ideas. Oh, a family is sitting watching TV and there's a satellite dish in the background. Oh, yawn. And then lots of flying. So I was sick of advertising.
So this children's book's not going to have any satellite dishes.
There are no satellite dishes, nor are there any beer cans in this children's
That's
book.
probably good for a children's book.
So 1990, a friend of mine wanted to attend this class at our old alma mater on children's book illustration. I thought, I'll be a good friend. I'll go with him. And then I got an idea. And it's one of those times in your career, maybe you get them all the time. I don't, but the idea sprang almost fully formed from my forehead. And I cranked out all these drawings really quickly. And as you may have guessed, it's the 12 Days of Christmas, an old holiday song, which always struck me as kind of an odd song because it's symbolic somehow. Among the stories you can find about it is that it was a ditty for Catholic children at the time of the Anglican Reformation in England, when the Anglican Church made Catholicism unacceptable. It kind of had to go underground. So like the partridge in the pear tree is Jesus, and the two turtle doves are, I don't remember now, the Old and New Testaments maybe. Some of the numbers didn't realize the way you might think they did, but it was okay because that's not what I was doing. It just occurred to me that if you take it literally, that for example, on the third day you get 3 French hens and 2 more turtle doves, a third partridge and a third pear tree, so that it builds exponentially, like a Malthusian wave. And it goes from quaint and serene, calm Christmas morning to insane wall-to-wall party with food. And I mean, there's lots of pears, as you might imagine. And with all those geese laying, and some hens are laying too in my version, you get lots of eggs, and you got maids milking, and they milk. And then the musicians come in, the drummers. You get musicians coming in, drummers, and then the piper, and then you get ladies dancing and lords. So it develops. You like the 3 French hens show up and they're cleaning the house. So you got to clean the house, and then you got to start egg production. You got to start milk production, and now you can have ice cream and eggnog and pears. And all these guests come in. And it just, I poured myself into it, and it was a lot of fun. I got all the drawings done 34 years ago, except for the very last 1.5 inches spreads. And I sold a mock-up out of Xerox copies of my drawings and chopped it around to publishers, to children's book publishers. And nobody was interested. They all told me, nobody's doing children's books. Oh, nobody wants Christmas books. What they were really telling me was that we don't want the unfinished book of an unknown artist. We don't know how fast you work, and truthfully, it's complex. if you could see, well, go to the Facebook page, you'll see, or my Instagram, Todd Lockwood Art.
It's really easy at that point personally.
It could have been.
For some artists, it is.
Well, the truth is, I had an image in my head of what the art would look like, and I wanted loose watercolors on top of my pencil drawings. And I didn't have the skills at the time to do it. In the first place, I did all the drawings on tracing paper, so they would have had to have been transferred to a new ground. And you always lose something when you transfer a drawing. You lose all the spontaneity, and some of the little perfect nuances get destroyed because you're tracing graphic paper or something to transfer the drawing to a ground. I painted the first day of Christmas twice, once in oils and once in acrylic, because those are the mediums I knew, and neither was right. And I got a little discouraged and started looking for other ways out of advertising. I went to my first convention in 1994 in Winnipeg, the WorldCon, and 2 years later I was working for TSR, and I was out of advertising, and I was having fun because I'm a D&D guy from way back.
Dragons, so many dragons.
Oh, dragons, yeah. And then third edition, designing the look of third edition with Sam Wood was one of the greatest gigs of my career. A D&D guy, I get to decide what D&D looks like. Yay!
No satellites.
Got no satellites, no beer, certainly no flying cans. And so that part of my career took off. But then in 2002, Hasbro had Wizards lay off their art staff, and I had just picked up Corel Painter, and I realized that this is how I can finish this artwork. I can scan my drawings in and paint on my drawings with a watercolor media, but digital in Painter, Corel Painter. So I redid the first day in Painter and liked it, and started the second day and was doing all right. And then I got busy. I started recovering Drizzt's books, and I was doing.
How far in was that?
That was like, well, it started before I left, actually. I did a cover for the 1,000 Orcs, which was wall-to-wall detail. I'm not afraid of detail, apparently. And so I come up with projects that are time-consuming to complete, like this book. I wish you could look at pictures. I wish I could show you pictures, but you'll get your chance soon enough. All right, back up. Keep the story in mind. So I had the sense then to get out my drawings and scan them and get them formatted in the right scale, size, dimensions, Photoshop document, and had them all ready to start painting. And that's when I got busy again. And in the mix of that, I wrote a novel for some reason and was working on the sequel. And the novel, The Summer Dragon, it did really well. And yeah, well, I'm proud of that book. You know, Maya is like my fourth child. And she's still waiting to grow up. I'm working on the sequel. And that's where the story kind of starts to take some bobs and weaves, because my publisher, Daw Books, was under the umbrella of Penguin Random House, and they sold Daw to the only publisher that would let my owner and editor, Betsy Wollheim, keep all her authors. Most of the buyers were just interested in Patrick Woodruff and The Name of the Wind, and they didn't really want anybody else. So she felt like she was looking out for us by keeping us on board. But in the scrum of that transfer, she was sort of demoted and became overworked. She was no longer the owner of her own company that her father started. It's really kind of a bad situation. And she told me that she didn't have time to read my manuscript more than once. So it had better be nearly ready to publish. Yeah. And it wasn't. I knew I had problems, and I wasn't sure how to fix them. And I needed my editor. And she'd already told me that she couldn't do it. So I tried showing it around to beta readers, And ultimately, I hired a couple of editors on my own dime to give me a professional edit and some professional advice. But as of March 2023, I was frustrated with the whole process and tired of running up against brick walls with the things I was trying to do. And I came across my scans of the 12 days. And honestly, if I were lying on my deathbed and that project weren't finished, I would regret it. I just had faith that that was something good. It's like, I don't know if you ever get that feeling. A lot of time you'll work on a piece and you'll go, it satisfies the job requirements, so I'll turn it in. Sometimes it's like, I'm really proud of that painting. And sometimes it's like, I hope nobody ever calls me on my bullshit in this painting. But the 12 Days of Christmas was a passion project that I started for my own kids. And I just always felt like it had legs.
It's cool you didn't lose interest in it over all of that time.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was. And it, if you know me for Dungeons and Dragons and Drift, we're having a podcast here, mister. Is that yours? Wait, look, people leave their shit on our.
You didn't ask what was in it, I noticed.
You don't know. You didn't spit in it too, did you?
We spit buddies.
Anyway.
Convention craziness here.
Where was I?
Spitting
so
at random people's stuff.
That was it. Yeah. So a year ago, I came across my scans. They were ready to paint, and so I realized now is the time. And I started painting. It took me a year to do all the paintings because they are loaded with detail.
They are loaded with detail.
You
sure you didn't hide a satellite in there somewhere?
I could maybe go back and, or maybe I'll remark your copy with a satellite.
I want a satellite on my
dish.
copy.
Yeah, we could have. Yeah, one of either my true love or I'm drinking a Coors beer and leaning on a satellite dish. No, so I spent basically the last year finishing the paintings. And then in November, I started planning a Kickstarter. And a friend of mine turned me on to Brown Books, who are a hybrid publisher, which means that I pay most all the upfront costs for printing and marketing, but then I get their marketing. And it gets the book into bookstores, potentially around the world.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is very cool. That will happen in October. Right now, all the files are done. They're working on getting. They don't want me to call them endorsements. Call them advanced praise. And they gave me a list of some of the ones they've gathered so far, and there's some good names in there. Not names I had known before, because I'm not a children's book world person, or hadn't been yet. But like New York Times bestselling illustrators, authors and illustrators.
People of note.
People who know children's books. At the other end of the next 4 weeks, I'm going to attend the American Library Association convention in San Diego and sign advanced reader copies and hobnob and hopefully get some street buzz going on it. But Kickstarter paid my bills down substantially. I'm still into my own pockets to finish the process with Brown. Like I got to come up with $2,000 for airline tickets, hotel rooms, and advanced readers copies for the ALA conference.
Did you have the Kickstarter yet? Or
the Kickstarter finished, but when I get home, I will launch the Backer Kit program, which will get anybody who missed the Kickstarter an opportunity to buy in after the fact while production is still going.
I missed the Kickstarter.
Did you?
I did.
Oh, well, that's a shame. Well, you can still get it.
Okay.
And I'll have copies that you can buy.
Yeah.
Later. Not yet.
Okay.
So, either way.
With a remark?
Yes. Yeah, you can get all of that stuff. You ask for a remark of a satellite, I'll give you a remark of a satellite.
Right.
Yeah, he might have bird poop on it, but
Promise?
Point is, I guess, that this was a job 34 years in the making that I'd never let go of because I believed in it, but I didn't have the skills or the reputation or the tools. There were resources lacking for me to pull that off.
Yeah, at the beginning, you didn't have the skills. So
No,
you weren't ready.
I was
to
a
finish
professional illustrator, but I didn't paint in watercolor. And acrylics can be like watercolor, but in order to use acrylics or oils, I had to transfer my drawing to a fresh ground because I drew them on tracing paper, as I mentioned. And you always lose something. And I painted the first day twice, once in acrylic and once in oils, and I didn't like either one of them because the drawing had lost something underneath, right?
it. Yeah.
So, but it would not leave the back of my head. And so I spent the last year almost exclusively, there were a couple of cover paintings in the mix, but almost exclusively finishing the paintings for 12 Days of Christmas. And it kind of rejuvenated my joy in creation at a time when it was a little beat up because commissions were dropping and a lot of covers they were getting were books I would never have picked up and read myself. And my own book was languishing in this morass from the sale of Daw to a new publishing house. And I was depressed, honestly. And picking that old project up and remembering why I started it to begin with, I have a granddaughter now. So I'm imagining her and the book in my lap at the same time, looking at the stuff. And it was fun to, the drawings are so detailed that I was finding stuff that I had forgotten and cracking myself up. So did I really do that? So anyway.
You haven't done any children's books before.
No. And like anybody who follows me for D&D or Magic or Drizzt or Dragons or who read The Summer Dragon and is waiting for Volume 2, which I will touch on, would never have seen this coming. And yet it predates all of them.
April Solomon is another illustrator, and Bob Eggleton and I were talking the other day about, she was asking us about, doing things new, and Bob was talking about, he's like, oh, I'm always doing things new. I'm always trying things in completely different industries and genres, and I'm going to go do something I've never done in this genre or that genre. Right. It sounds like you do the same thing, and I do the same thing. It just kind of keeps you.
You get
fresh.
bored with the rut that you've been put in, or the pigeonhole you've been allotted.
Keeps you fresh.
That's why I wrote a novel. Is I had stories. I grew up. I learned to draw and to write by making my own comic books, which in my mind I was telling a movie or drawing a TV show. So I was learning about story at the same time that I was learning to turn objects in shape and draw them from different angles, and applying perspective and all that stuff, and becoming a better and better artist. That's all I did as a kid. I dropped my school books on the floor and watched Star Trek reruns, and then I started drawing. And that was my childhood.
Yeah, kind of the same thing.
I was kind of a boring kid.
The best part about illustration is you have to kind of figure this stuff out. If someone asks you about this project, they ask me, can you do Disney princesses? I'm like, I'm sure I probably can. I can figure it out. Sure. You got to kind of solve the problem. Figure it out.
Well, I grew up on Disney films and Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera, and I drew all manner of stuff when I was young, including funny animals, cartoon animals. But I really kind of applied myself here. I gathered reference at a time when there was no Google image, which meant magazines and going to the library and checking out their image stock file and photocopying the things that I wanted to keep. And
someone was asking me earlier today about reference, about getting reference.
Yeah, reference is essential.
She didn't know where to get reference. She said she doesn't have anybody nearby to get reference from.
Google Image. Yeah. What a boon.
I know. Where did you get reference before Google Image?
Before Google Image? Well, I had swipe files.
Yep.
I paid my young daughter a couple times to sort through all the images I'd pulled and sort them into folders so that if I needed a bear, I could go to the bear folder and pull out the 5 or 6 bear photos that I had. Or I could drive an hour down to the Denver Library and use their image catalog and check out images and bring them home and draw and paint from them, and then drive an hour to return them to the um, magazine images mostly, yeah, sometimes from books, but they had about as big as this room here, so like a file cabinet, say 15 by 20 feet. Cabinets all around. It probably wasn't 15 because it was only two-sided, but 4 feet tall, maybe, just full of images, categorized alphabetically, and it was useful for a lot of advertising stuff. But Google Image, man, what a boon!
I know Google Image is great.
There's no excuse for bad reference anymore. The advent of digital cameras was a boon because I was shooting reference of figures for my cover paintings. And then I would have to take those rolls of film and get them developed and pick the good ones. And if there weren't any good ones, I either had to fake it from the ones I had, which is a learning experience in itself, or bring a model back and shoot another roll or 2 or 3 or 8 of film to get what you needed.
Yeah.
Whereas with a digital camera, all of a sudden, you take a picture, turn it around. No, not good enough. Raise your hand an inch.
And take it again.
And take it again.
I'm always taking pictures of everything.
Yeah. Textures and landscapes.
I gotta take a picture of that. I gotta take a picture.
And there's no excuse not to do that. The phone in my pocket is better than the phone in my camera kit because it's old. My phone's old and it's still a better camera.
I know.
But so reference is a really critical thing. There's a point somebody will say to you, "Oh, you can't use reference. That's like cheating, or that's plagiarism." No, you hire a model or stiff arm a model.
Get over here.
I had 3 beautiful models living in my house for a while.
Yeah.
They're all teenagers and all good looking and interested in story. My son was a great model.
You have kids and you make a model.
Yeah, well, you want to eat?
Come here, hold that.
Yeah, hold this. Stand in this pose. All right.
You have friends, have a model.
But you eventually you learn how to fake it better and better, but only because you've been drawing from life, from good reference. Yeah. You just your inner gestalt gets better and better. I forgot where I was going with that.
Models reference.
Models reference, really important. Eventually, you'll get to a point where you can fake it. There was a painting specifically that I remember I did while I was at Wizards, but it was for Tor Books, called Not Quite Scaramouche, and I drew the whole thing out of my head, a dragon with 3 figures on its back. And by then, I was able to do these figures because they were smallish and the lighting was straightforward, nothing difficult, just draw the figures out of my head. And they look good.
They're small enough.
Yeah. They were, like this big on the painting, maybe. So little, but still, I paint really tight, and I am detail oriented, I guess you could say.
I know. I find if I'm struggling with something, it's because I'm trying to fake it and I'm trying to get around.
Done
I'm trying to get around not finding the reference because I don't feel like trying to find the reference.
And
I'm trying to work it and be like, it can't be that hard. I'm just gonna
most often when I do that, I end up having to throw it aside and shoot the reference.
I'm trying to cheat. I'm trying to be lazy.
I'm trying to be
lazy and not get the reference right.
Mm-hmm.
I was teaching Kat, my child, she was trying to figure out why she couldn't get the branch right on a evergreen tree. And so I finally just went out with some scissors and brought back an entire evergreen branch. She's like, "Are you going to go get an evergreen branch?" I'm like, "Yep." She came back and she's like, oh. And then she's like, I didn't think it felt like that. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like hair. See how it falls like hair? And she's touching it. She's like, no, I mean, you can't really replace actually touching it and seeing it.
And everything has anatomy.
She's like, I thought it went the other way. So I didn't realize it felt like hair like that. She's like, I can see what it's like. And then the cat's got a hold of it. And it was obsessed. But yeah, it doesn't replace seeing it.
Right. And everything has anatomy. Trees have anatomy. Mountains have anatomy. Clouds have anatomy.
Yeah.
And why do I say that? Well, because
And
they
gesture.
grow a specific way. Clouds form because of certain conditions. Mountains are either volcanic or uplift in nature. Not very often anything else but they create different landscapes. Like your Rockies are all uplift mountains, and so you get layers of
Tectonic, they get pushed up.
yeah, the tectonics of the two plates were
They're broken.
Right.
They
the plates as they're getting pushed together, they get pushed up, and so you'll see all these layers of stone at an angle, and they get chopped off sheared off, and you just get different forms. Whereas a volcanic mountain starts out as a cone, but then it gets eroded, and then maybe another
or glacial, where
where
be
valleys get
pushed
scrubbed
gently.
out. Yeah, you can get a moraine pushed up at the bottom, or if a valley is smooth and rounded, it was probably glacial. Whereas like the Grand Canyon was carved out by just the water, and so it's a deep ravine, but you can still see the layers of that uplift.
Yeah,
so
you can't just fake it.
Can't just fake it.
You got to know what you're drawing. I mean, if you're going to draw a conifer, you got to know what kind of conifer you're
this
drawing.
This is not a mountain. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not a pine tree.
No. I was showing you the different shapes of. I'm like, well, what kind of pine tree are you drawing? Are they going straight up? Are they kind of like? Are they going soft and like hanging over? I'm like, how are they going? You know, what kind of tree are you drawing?
What kind of life has that tree had? But was it a happy little tree, or did it get damaged along the way?
Struck by lightning. You know, it hasn't seen a lot of drought. You know.
Yeah.
Well, what are you drawing here? And so, is it soft or is it hard? Is it the Christmas tree that you always prick your fingers on when you try to hang the blue spruce where you're trying to hang the damn ornaments on and you're bleeding,
It's not just anatomy, it's story. Like mountains have stories. They tell a story. The story of their life is evident in their construction. And the same with clouds. You get a certain weather pattern, and you'll either get the flat cirrus clouds that look horizontal in photos or paintings that you've seen, and depending on your viewpoint, they might angle up over you and look like rays, except they're really just parallel, and you're standing under them and looking around, right? Or you get the right conditions, you get big old cumulus, and maybe they grow so big that they're thunder tops. But there's anatomy involved and the story involved.
That choice really makes a difference between a good illustration and a so-so illustration.
You
could slap some clouds in there, but that's not. I mean, you're missing a whole bunch of depth if you just slap some clouds in there.
Yeah. When I was learning to paint in junior high, I did a number of landscapes because my mom thought I should be a landscape painter.
Oh, really?
She wanted me to paint things you'd hang over your couch, and I wanted to paint car wrecks and monsters. And
you can hang that over your couch.
Well, yeah, I could.
There's a monster car wreck. You can put it over your couch.
She sold a painting by me to a friend of hers, a couch painting, and I never did finish it. I started it. I intended to finish it, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I enjoyed painting it. It was Long's Peak in Colorado and some foreground. And, the more you draw or paint things like that, the better you understand them. But I also loved science class. I enjoyed geology because it was informing me why the things I was looking at looked the way they did. I enjoyed biology, the way trees grow, stuff like that, the way plants grow. That stuff's all interesting to me because it's all grist for the mill. I think when you're an artist, if you want to be a professional artist who paints realistic stuff, you have to observe your world. It's as simple as that. You have to be an observer. When people say they're witnessing for this or that, I'm witnessing what I see. If I'm putting something out there, it's because I saw it and I tried to understand it, and this is an interpretation of it. It says something about your journey in art. What you present shows how attentive you've been, what you've been attentive to, what you're, where you focus is probably where your interests are deepest. Stuff like that. That's the one problem I have with AI right now. I don't want to get into that too deeply, but it's kind of soulless. There's no one journey represented there.
Yeah.
And some of it's shockingly good.
That's what's so.
So it's disturbing. I don't know how young artists break into the field. We're going to have to adapt to it.
Well, that's what's daunting about it. That's why I want this part of what I want this channel to be so encouraging to artists, because it's daunting to look at it, and it's honestly it's discouraging when you look at it.
I think people will get tired of a lot of AI art.
I think they already are.
Well, it depends on who's writing the prompts, I guess. I mean, I've seen some stuff that looks painted or painterly, or has a style seemingly of its own, whereas they probably put in a prompt in the style of somebody whose work has been scraped. But an awful lot of it, where they're not injecting a style, just looks the same.
But it can't make all those little choices. It can't say, right, let's make cumulonimbus clouds, and let's make this mountain look like this, and let's carve the edge of the cliff to look like, right, a knife.
A lot of AI art that I see is sort of homogenous with all the other AI art.
It is. Yeah. I mean, we make all those little choices, and I don't know, we make every single little choice, right, which is why art's so exhausting. I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted after I create for so many hours.
Yeah, that's why when I come to a convention, I don't sit in the chair and draw.
No, because I
got relaxing to do.
Because I don't know about you, but I can clean the house for 80 hours straight. But when I'm doing art, I get exhausted after because I'm like, wow, why am I so tired? I could, No, we're doing a podcast.
We're podcasting. Now. Awesome. I just wanted to ask. All right, just hand it over here.
Todd's got to sign some cards. He's a famous illustrator, so he's got to do the card signing thing. So, but what are you signing there? Magic cards?
It's a magic card. Rishkar Pima Renegade.
Oh, cool! Awesome. Yeah.
There you go.
Magic cards.
There we are.
Magic cards. Yay.
We're at a convention.
Yeah.
People are shameless.
That's okay.
It's all right.
That happens at a convention.
Yeah.
If we really wanted privacy, we would have gone somewhere, not public.
Not public.
Not in the artist corner where people are supposed to come and talk to the artists.
Right.
I suppose we would have not been in the art listed under art supplies with a big art supplies banner above us.
Banner up here. This is the artist corner.
The artist corner. That probably wasn't the best place to sit and do a podcast. But that's okay. That's right. Kind of why I picked us to be here. So.
Well, it sounds like a bar behind us, which is because there's a bar in front of us.
There's actually a bar in front of us. So you're not drinking your
my water,
your muddy water, muddy Missoulian water. So I don't see very many questions. I see one question.
I'm a sipper, not a gulper.
I can't read it, so we both have to put our glasses on.
Best viewers on Cutley /
I don't know. I can't read it. I don't even read it either. So
that might be spam.
Okay, might be spam. So, well, if anybody has any questions, so I'm not sure how much Wi-Fi reception we're having down here. So hopefully we're not just talking to ourselves. But
I hope you're recording it to your laptop.
That's what I have a producer. That's this guy in the corner here.
So. Oh, the one that's grayed out?
The one that's grayed out. I'm sure he'll tell me if it's going good. Anyway, so what else are you working on?
Well, I am finally got all the feedback I needed and solved the problems in my head for the broken places in the manuscript for the sequel to The Summer Dragon. So as soon as that Kickstarter ended, I went back to work on the manuscript. And, I'm making good changes, figuring out, I don't know, I just got in a rhythm of removing the chaff from the wheat. At this stage, I'm trying to eliminate 10 to 40% of every paragraph, or entire paragraphs that aren't really serving the larger arc of the story, to bring it down to a better size, speed it up, make it a quicker read. There's one thing about The Summer Dragon is once it took off, it just didn't let up. It kept going. There were lulls, but lots of I don't know. A lot of people told me they just couldn't put it down, or that they read it in one sitting.
Yeah.
And they've been waiting for the sequel for 8 years now, and I'm
Oh my God, has it been
finally
that
back
long?
on it. Yes,
Oh
it
my
has been
God.
8 years.
I can't believe it's been 8 years.
But I keep promising that I will not George R. Rothfuss this sequel. It's a reference to George R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah. Who both owe a sequel and have not yet delivered. I tried to deliver before either one of them, and the editor said, it's got to be perfect. That's part of your job. Okay. So anyway, I'm working on that. I have the cover started because I know I'll need the cover done a year in advance of publishing, because that's how it works.
Uh-huh.
And we got a problem?
No, we're good. We're good. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Alrighty.
You're good. Keep going.
That's kind of it. I'm not sure what else. What are you working on?
Talking to you.
What are you working on?
No, oh, just a bunch of stuff. This isn't about me. You're the guest. You talk.
Cats and boobs.
Cats and boobs. I'm working on, that's not about me. Last week was about me. We're talking about you right now.
Okay.
So.
Well, after this, go back to work on the manuscript. Plugging little gaps here and there in the stream of necessaries in order to get the book published. But it's mostly in the pipeline now. I've done all the work.
Mm-hmm.
I laid it out. I designed it. I did all the typography. Because I've done all that stuff. I started out of art school, first year and a half in a design shop in Denver, kind of an upper echelon design shop that did advertisements of all sorts, including with illustrations. It was part of how I got hired, is because I could illustrate. But it was like things for like newspaper ads or stuff like that. I did a lot of cartoony stuff for them. Nothing very realistic, honestly. But I always enjoyed typography and type design, and developing logos. It's one of my areas of expertise. So this whole book is my baby.
Yeah. I used to hate type.
Yeah?
Oh, God, I hated it when I started it. I hated it. I like it much better now, but I used to get
we had to be able to hand letter when I went to art school.
Me too.
Yeah. And I was good at it. I've got a good spatial sense. And
it's important to look at the space between the letters. I was teaching one of the younger illustrators came to me, and he was having a big problem with type, and he was looking at it like type, and I had to teach him to look at it like an illustrator.
Yeah.
Because he was looking at it like an illustrator, because he's like, he couldn't figure out what he was doing wrong, and I'm like, you got to look at it. You got to look at it like an artist. You got to look at the space between it. And he wasn't looking at
what
the
they
space.
call visual gray. If you squint at your type, it should all look like it's sort of the same color.
Right.
And if it isn't, there's certain letters like a capital A, because it's triangular. If you put it next to a T, or if you put an L in front of it, you've got a huge airspace between the two letter forms.
Yep.
And so you gotta stick that L. Where am I? Oh, I'm gonna hit you in the head.
You smack me in the face. Yeah.
You gotta stick that L right up against the A, and maybe even shorten that leg of it, or maybe even make what's called a ligature out of it. So it's not an L and an A, it's an LA.
Yeah.
And
if it's not working, then maybe it's the wrong font.
Maybe, or it's a VT, and the V and the T are holding hands like for their very life.
And he was thinking of it as type, and he, and he could, and I'm like, you got to think of it like art, like art, yeah. Yeah, and just stop thinking of it as fonts.
Yeah, what's the important part of whatever text you're laying down? No, like body copy is a little different, but if you're doing logo work or title design, or
this is for text on coins, and he was trying to find the right font, but he was just kind of putting fonts in, and he couldn't visualize it. And I'm like, you got to think of it as part of the design, and you got to and then think of the space between it. Once you got to think, when do you start thinking of it as actually part of the illustration? He was like, oh, I can see it differently now. And that, I think that actually helped a lot. So it's part of changing your looks, think how you're looking at stuff sometimes. So
yeah, there are times when, well, like even on the 12 Days of Christmas, I'm laying out the title for the cover, and I did illuminated letters for the T in 12, the D in Days, and the C in Christmas, and I put it on 2 lines. And because of the illuminated letters, what might have been actually centered doesn't look centered. So you get to cheat it. And then I tucked a holiday fantasy, the subtitle, in underneath. And if you look at it, it's not perfectly centered and stacked. It's a little skewed, but then the illustration, it looks centered.
Yeah.
But it's technically not. So it's like jamming the L into the A. You have to visually account for things. And one good way to get it right is to flip it backwards, so you stop associating those shapes with letter forms.
Yep.
And just see it as a mass of color and shapes.
Now, by illuminating, you mean you're like actually illustrating around the first.
Yeah, the
first letter, right?
Letter is in a box.
For the listeners that we have that don't know, because we do have some listeners that might not know what illuminated letters are.
It's a letter with illustration.
The letters with illustration done around
it,
like the big old manuscripts that you see with all the fancy pants stuff all around it.
Yeah, fancy pants.
Fancy pants.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's fancy.
It's fancy.
Fancy pants.
Yeah. Now you just picture a big letter wearing fancy pants.
That's also something you can do with an illustration. If you're not sure what's wrong, look at it backwards. Flip it horizontal. Back in the day, before digital media, I had a mirror that came out of a Xerox machine with the silver on the reflective side. Most mirrors, the silver's on the back. If you've ever noticed that little double reflection, that's because you have to see through the glass before you get to the silver. But you also get a reflection on the glass.
Really?
So you got 2 reflections. Just one's brighter than the
other. I thought you just held it in a pool of water.
Well, technology keeps advancing. But it was out of a Xerox machine, so it was it's what's called a single surface mirror.
Yeah.
So you don't get that double reflection. And I hold it up at an angle and my drawing in it, and then you disassociate it from your perceptions of what you thought you were doing, and you can see what you did, and you can often see the mistakes because now you're seeing it in a new light. Or turn it upside down. That's the old trick.
I remember I was so frustrated with the piece. I was doing a piece for Arlo Guthrie, and I was so pissed off at it. I was all angry and pissed and upset. And at that point, Laz just usually sends me home or up to bed. And so he's a creative director, and I'm like, I hate this. I suck. I'm like, I give up. I'm gonna go get a job as a plumber or something. I storm off to bed, and and he usually goes and he just fixes something. And I come down in the morning, and come down and I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, usually like, oh, it's not too bad. And bastard just, all he did was flip the church. And I was like, you suck. Because that's all I needed to do. It was just backwards. The whole thing was backwards. I was like, you suck. Fucking. And it was fine. It's all I needed to do. It was just needed to be flipped. And yeah, it was fine. Just kept working on it. Finished it up now.
Yeah.
I was like,
so do you do your paintings traditionally still?
Oh, that one was digital.
If I'm going to paint something traditionally, I still draw it in the computer.
I usually draw it by hand, and then
I used to, but
you
spend so much time cutting this out and rotating it and taping it back down, or going to the Xerox and making that head 5% bigger so it doesn't look stupid, or stuff like that. Some of my oil paintings I did for Wizard of the Coast back in the day, I was able to get the drawing out on vellum in one pass, and it looked great. And others were a mishmash of Xerox copies spliced in, a place where I had to move things closer together, and so there's a line in between where I cut out between, and
so how would you do it?
On the backside, Scotch tape on the backside.
Scotch tape it and then piece it together.
And then I would take the drawings to Kinko's and use their giant document copier Xerox machine to transfer my drawing onto hot press watercolor paper, which is sort of like cold press surface wise. Even though it's called hot press, it had some texture. And so then I would paint on my drawings. And that wasn't a solution I had at the beginning of the 12 Days of Christmas. That's not something that I would ever have known to do. And I still had to clean up the drawings some, which is much easier to do digitally than with an eraser on tracing paper.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you can't exactly paint oil on tracing paper.
no, and I can't paint on the tracing paper. So.
No, that's not going to work really well. I remember trying that early on in art school. I'm like, that doesn't work so well.
I did once mount a vellum drawing to a board with matte medium and seal the drawing with spray fix, and then seal it again with matte medium, and paint right on the actual drawing on vellum with oils. Get the paper isolated in plastic media from the oil media so that the oils don't soak into the paper and ruin it over time, which will happen. If you paint oils directly on paper or wood, it may not last real well.
Yeah.
Some of Frank Frazetta's paintings that he did the night before they were due on Masonite are starting to show the lack of adhesion that they really could have used.
Well, if you're painting them for illustrations, you're not necessarily thinking of the long-term.
That's true.
You're painting an illustration because it needs to be done the next day, and you're not really like concerned about what it's going to look like in 500 years. You're just like, right. I just need this done for tomorrow. I mean, you just grab the house paint and color the sky with it. And you're not really worried about it. You're like, yeah, that works. You're not really.
Well, you could do that with acrylics, but with oils, you have to isolate the ground.
Yeah.
With something.
Yeah.
Even on canvas, it'll be rabbit skin glue or gesso or something that will isolate the ground from the paint.
Yeah.
Oh, the technical things that almost don't matter anymore.
It's kind of crazy. But
I honestly don't miss painting with all the palette scraping and brush cleaning and brush throwing away and
I like painting.
And caps that won't come off of the tube. And once everything's set up and I'm working, it can be enjoyable. But then you finish the day, you got to clean everything up.
You still paint? Right?
Once in a while. It depends on the painting. Most book covers that I do these days, nobody's going to want this oil painting, so I don't worry about it.
So you just do digital now?
So I mostly just do digital. And I painted the 12 days digitally because that was the only way I was going to get it done. It still took me a year to do 14 paintings.
That is a lot of detail.
15 paintings.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah. The last big spread is every gift and every animal that showed up through the rest of the book that wasn't food to be consumed. It all shows up on that last spread. It goes on the 12th day, you get the Lords of Leaping, ladies dancing, blah, blah, blah. There's 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, ... And then you turn the page, and it's wall-to-wall party. And then you turn the page, and it's and a partridge in a pear tree.
So where can they find this? Where can they find the Kickstarter?
The Kickstarter, you can find it from my website. You can find it if you go to Kickstarter and look for the 12 Days of Christmas. It should come up. Spell it out, 12, not 1, 2, but TWELVE.
Okay.
And if you find the lions dancing and playing the fifes or piccolos or flutes, and other animals, there are pig drummers, and there's some geese eating donuts, and some raccoons dancing and having an ice cream cone. If you find that's the banner picture. And right now it will say that it's ended, but my backer kit is ready for review, and then it can go live, and then there'll be a link on the Kickstarter page to the backer kit. And I'll post links to that on my website and on all my Facebook pages, so that everybody can find the backer kit. And
then when's it going to be published?
It will be published probably in October, in time for Christmas next year.
Yay!
And but I'll have my copies for my Kickstarter supporters and backer kit supporters in July or August, so you'll get it early. And you'll have the opportunity of picking up the special edition, which has a slipcase, embossed in foil. The cover of the book is fabric embossed in foil and has a nice dust jacket on it.
Only took 34 years.
And it only took 34 years.
Well, congratulations.
Paper. And oh, this is fun. I was at NorwestCon in March. April? Because it was coming at NorwestCon's always Easter Sunday. So whatever weekend Easter Sunday was. And I'm sitting down in the bar talking with friends, having dinner, and one of the guys I'm talking with, I've known him for years. His name's Russ Campbell.
Okay.
And he was in his Santa Claus get up because he's a professional Santa Claus. And I've been sitting there for an hour talking to him, and I realized, wait a minute, wait. I'm launching a Kickstarter in a couple of weeks for a Christmas book, and here I am talking to Santa Claus. And so I got him to hold up some paper, just a 8.5 by 11 sideways, and act like it's a book. And then I got a photo of us, and I took it home, photoshopped the book in, so it looks like he's holding up the book. And then posted that, and I got to thinking, he lives in Oregon. It's just down the road. What a great perk it would be to get Santa Claus's signature in the book too. So that's an add-on that you can purchase, or you'll get my signature and Santa's signature. So you can have a Christmas book signed by Santa Claus.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is fun.
All right, looks like we're out of time. So.
Are we? All right.
Yeah, so.
Well,
anything else you want to say?
Yeah, get out of here. No. No, thanks for having me. That was fun.
Thanks for being on.
ToddLockwood.com, Todd Lockwood Art. You can find me on Facebook. I got 4 Facebook pages because I started a new one to replace the one that was stolen, and then I got the stolen one back, but I really can't access it very well. There's something glitchy or broken in it, so I still have to address that. But anyway, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on my website, Instagram, Todd Lockwood Art. Yeah, and then
all right, you can show up here,
or you could
bring your
Missoula
magic, bring your magic cards.
Yep.
Have some funny looking Missoula water.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.